Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Schooled In. My name is John Lunn, aka Jonnychipz, and in this video series, we take a deeper dive into some of the awesome cloud technology that we know and love. I'll be joined by fantastic people from out in our tech community who have kindly taken their time out their day to come and school me in a particular tech topic. So, whether you're watching this on YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, or LinkedIn, thanks so much for tuning in. It really is appreciated. Please do take part in the chat below. Drop us a comment, a like, and a subscribe. That would be awesome. Okay, so security and managing access to our systems should be paramount importance for all of us, really. But when it comes to managing the life cycle of access controls, it's probably safe to say that not a lot of us are doing it in the right way, potentially, and managing it to that best practice, that we could be making sure that we manage access to all of our resources, but control it and limit it when we absolutely need to, and that access is no longer required. So on that note, I'm super thrilled to be joined by Senior Program Manager, MVP, MCT, and Mr. Captain Hyperscaler himself, Mr. Dwayne Natwick, who today is going to school me in identity and access governance. Hiya, Dwayne. How you doing? Thanks for joining me. How you doing there?
I'm doing well, John. Thank you. Thanks for having me today.
Oh, no, absolutely. Well, it's great to have you back on. One of the very few guests that have come back on to do another show with me, Dwayne. So you must...
I'm sure it doesn't have anything to do with want. It's just that you're so popular. There's so many limited spots available.
Oh, I don't know. Well, there is that. I think, it's great, obviously knowing the likes of yourself and other fantastic people across the community all doing some fantastic content. It's always great to hook back up and kind of delve into a bit of a different area. Well, not a different area, such as security related, which I know is something close to your heart. But look, we've got a great topic area to discuss today. But I guess before we do that, do you want to give yourself a little bit of an introduction and let us know what you've been up to since we last spoke?
Yeah, sure. I think you did a fine job of introducing me in your intro, but yeah, since we last spoke, I think it was around November timeframe that we spoke, and I was in the process of changing positions. I'm now a senior product manager with CloudReach, handling their global migration and security strategy. So that's what I've been doing since November, as well as still, trying to stay up in the community, stay active with different events and things that are going on, and doing some things where we're going to be relaunching our user group as Give Me Cloud Talks, which we're trying to be a little bit more conversational, kind of what you and some of the other people in the community have done with these kind of open chat kind of efforts have inspired me and the organizers of the user group to kind of rethink Give Me Cloud Talks as more of that kind of community outreach rather than a user group, which I think has become pretty saturated over the course of the last couple of years.
Yeah, well, to be honest, they are a great format, and I think you find the right topic area, and it's a great conversation. I think people pick a lot of good knowledge up from guests as you kind of find those things. Hence, these kinds of episodes where you're going to school me in something very specific, Dwayne. So, look, I know before we jump into it, I know that you've had your exam guide book, your SC 300 book, released. If I flick over to show everybody what that looks like. I mean,
right here.
Oh, there we go. You've got it. And there's one on the screen as well. So the Microsoft Identity and Access Administrator, the exam guide.
Yes.
To be honest, Dwayne, I noticed, I remember when these security exams came out back last year, and I think I did the fundamentals exam just off the bat. And it's a really kind of comprehensive set of exams now I see in the SC range. So you've done the book on the SC 300, which is the Identity and Access Administrator, and I guess we're going to talk a little bit about that now. But I mean, how did that come to be, and how did you find that whole process, Dwayne?
Well, it was fun. So I actually will have in the next couple months also the SC 900, the fundamentals coming out as well. So I was actually writing two of these exam guides for PACT simultaneously.
Wow. Wow.
So they reached out to me on LinkedIn about a year ago about writing a book. They asked me about SC 400 at first, and I was like, yeah, that's not really, not really my my full cup of tea. I understand it, but I ended up getting Shabazz Dar involved in that one. And then they were like, how about SC 300? I'm like, yeah, that one's one I definitely would be interested in doing. And then a little while later, they're like, do you know anybody for SC 900? I'm like, hey, yeah, I'd like to write that one too. They're like, we usually don't do that, but they worked with me. I worked with me with a nice schedule. I did kind of a ratio of 2 chapters to 1 as I went through it. And this one I finished with all my chapters and writing it before the holidays, before the Christmas holiday. And then then early last month I finished the SC 900, which was about a month in advance to my schedule on that one, because the last few chapters went pretty quick. I find a fundamentals book or even like course is much harder to teach than they're much harder to talk through everything. Okay. Because you're so high level, you don't want to get too deep in the weeds, but at least with a book though, you get a little bit deeper than really what you get in the Microsoft Learn content. And that was one thing I liked about that's one thing I liked about doing this Identity and Access Administrator guide too, was I went a lot deeper than just the objective areas and objective topics of the exam. Which was great. And not soon after I finished this exam, I actually was involved with the objective domain refresh, and we actually brought in a few of the objectives that I expanded in this book into the objective domain of SC 300.
Oh, cool. So that's pretty cool. So you've had,
which is good because I made sure to guide that my book wasn't out of date upon release.
So what you're saying, Dwayne, is when I sit and probably fail on the first attempt this exam, I've got you to blame for it.
No, not at all.
Not at all.
You're going to pass.
No, and do you know what? It's great to see, because I know, I mean, I'm probably, I've been in the industry a little while, so I managed to sit some of the predecessor exams, which I guess, gleans some information and detail that you cover off in this book around like the MS 500 and the AZ 500 security exams. I know there's probably a slight amount of overlap, but certainly, a lot of the new up-to-date features and functionality, like you say, have probably been brought into these security exams. So really interested to see the content there.
Yeah, when I talk about taking a security certification path, it's always starts and ends with a fundamentals exam, because one thing about the SC 900 is it's a broad brush of security across Microsoft 365 and Azure.
Sure.
And then I always say, if you're not sure which direction, you get an idea there, okay, I want to go the Azure route or I want to go the Microsoft 365 route, then you got the 500 exams, and the 500 exams are, again, a broad brush of all the security topics of Azure or Microsoft 365. And then you get into really getting specialized. And that's what really the SC 300, the 400, and the 200 really get into. And the new SC 100 exam now as well.
I noticed that it's recently been announced as well. Is that for, I can't remember the title of that one, but it's for a security analyst?
Cybersecurity architect.
Yeah, cool. I mean, Microsoft seems to be doing this quite a lot at the moment. Is they've had these broad examinations. Well, by broad, I mean they've had this plethora of examinations, but now they seem to be very much fine-tuning and digging in a little bit deeper and kind of in between those exams, which is cool. And
the nice thing is that they finally have that expert badge around security. If everybody, anybody wants that expert badge rather than a bunch of associate badges. This is the SC 300 is one of the prereqs. There's four prereq exams that you need one of those plus the SC 100 to get your expert badge. This is one. The AZ and the MS 500s are 2 other ones, and the SC 200 is another one. Those are the 4. Okay. Those are the 4. Any one of those 4 plus the SC 100 will get you your cybersecurity architect expert.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, that is pretty cool. So, I guess it's like anything, there's sometimes not enough hours in the day to kind of sit down and look through the kind of the skills measured and the objective domains of these exams to make sure you cover off all the areas. But Look, I mean, for those people that are watching now, if you are interested in this examination, Dwayne's book is out now, available in all good bookshops and Amazon. You know, if you want to put some money in Jeff Bezos's back pocket, then jump on over to Amazon and look it up. It's there, ready and waiting. I believe it is. Yeah, it's out now, isn't it, Dwayne?
It came out. It came out on the 10th of March. Yep.
Okay,
The
yeah,
SD 900, I think, is due out in June or July timeframe, but that's also on Amazon as well. You can get there just selecting my author page now, actually. And I want to thank Shannon Keene from Microsoft, because she was kind enough to donate her time to write the foreword for the exam or for the book, and as well as my technical reviewers, which included some people from the MVP community as well that went through each chapter and made sure that my exercises were correct, and that that I had explained the content correctly and things like that. So very helpful having that guidance.
Oh, absolutely, and I think it's fair to say that, you know, it just goes to show the caliber of people that you've got, not only writing these kind of books, but like you say, going through that whole review process. So you know that essentially, you know, as somebody looking to learn these areas, it's you've got a gold standard book there to actually learn from, and obviously take to go and sit the exam. So Dwayne, you know, huge congratulations on the book first and foremost. Like I say, you know, for people watching, go and order that now if it's something you're looking to get into. But I guess for today's episode of Schooled In, we're going to dig a little bit into some of the areas of this book, Dwayne, and we're going to talk about identity and access governance. So, I mean, how do we kick that off, Dwayne? I mean, have you got like a high-level forward that you can kind of describe? What are we going to talk about now today?
Yeah, so I think you pointed it out pretty well, you know, in your intro. Is you know, we can add, you know, we add users and we put users into our identity and access environment, right? Whether it's Azure AD, or it's, you know, Google or AWS IAM or Facebook or whatever. Users are added. There's federation, you know, there's federated access across the cloud. You know, we have our identities everywhere, right? It's kind of scary if you kind of think about it in a way of where we have our emails spread across the world and across the internet, and one of the things that we don't think about enough personally or business wise is how are we governing the access of those identities and the continued need to have access. You know, generally you create a username on a site, and generally that doesn't expire ever. It's just out there, right? So if somebody has the means to get your identity, or guess you're not using MFA, and you know, and they guess your password, they've got a level of your identity, and you know, if you've got credit card information on there and all of that, you know, you could be up for some level of identity theft. Same thing goes for a business. Is there are certain projects or certain things that a company might give somebody a level of access to. You know, you might have a partner that comes in and needs access to certain resources, and if you're not governing over where that project stands and that project is completed, and you remove that level of access, there might be ways and means for somebody to get into that environment. Prime example of that, you know, I don't know how much this was a story in the UK, but last year the southern oil pipeline was hacked, and somebody got in there and put ransomware and locked that pipeline up for about a week.
Wow.
And it turned out, what they found out was that the people that got access, they accessed 2 users that were no longer in the company and did not have and MFA was not enabled on those accounts.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
You know,
so
why,
it wasn't
even anybody that was in the company that was compromised. It was people that weren't even in the company anymore, and nobody removed them, let alone put MFA on the accounts to begin with. And they had elevated privileges, and they got right into the, you know, high levels of that environment and shut them down. So
And I know, from my exposure to security features and functionality from within Azure, from 365, that we've got certain technical components that we can turn on and activate and use to kind of manage those access restrictions, or like things like privileged identity management, and making sure that people have that least privilege unless they want it. But I mean, what are we specifically going to be talking about then, Dwayne, in terms of what is this
I think,
identity governance thing all about?
yeah, I think one of the and you brought one of them up, privileged identity management. I think everybody knows privileged identity management at a high level, at least for the for the most part, and providing just in time expirational type elevated privileges where and where it's requested, it's audited, and you have levels of access reviews. Something I wanted to bring a little bit more to light that probably isn't talked about enough, and I found this out when I took the SC300 exam, for example. It's very much a big part of this exam is entitlement management, and
Right.
and the key thing around entitlement management is it can help manage that life cycle, especially when it comes to, say, like the example I put forth of specific projects or access to a catalog of resources that that people within your organization as well as guests have access to, that is only for a finite amount of time, and if it needs additional beyond that, there's access reviews that go along with that to continue to review that and approve that properly. But it's all about auditing. It's all about auditing your resources. And another way, even just a simple way, even to manage governance of your users is having them, giving their roles based on at group levels that are set up by and that people are members by dynamic grouping. That way, if they change departments, they don't still have those same privileges and roles that follow them as well. So, all of those things in terms of how you're managing somebody's life cycle while they're within the organization, or especially guest users, if guest users need some sort of elevated privileges for certain reasons, that we're reviewing that and we're auditing that and keeping an eye on that. And that's really what identity and access governance is. And like I said, I think it's probably a not used as prominently as it really should. And like I said, entitlement management is a big one. I learned a lot about entitlement management preparing for this exam and then writing this book, really, because it is, because I made sure that I, knowing what I knew from taking the exam, that I had an expansive view of entitlements and how entitlements worked for the book, and really learned a lot about about the benefits and the use cases for utilizing this resource within Azure Active Directory.
Sure. So, I mean, how do we get started with it then, Dwayne? Is there somewhere we can go to kind of jump in and start clicking and pushing around and trying to understand some of these things?
Right in Azure Active Directory, under the Manage portion of Azure Active Directory is Identity Governance. And you go into Identity Governance and you've got your dashboard there for Privileged Identity Management, which we covered quickly. But right there at the forefront is your entitlement management. And really what the interesting thing and the really confusing thing around entitlement management is access packages and catalogs, because there's like a weird chicken and egg thing that goes along both of those. That's really kind of funny because you create a catalog and you create a catalog first, and then you reference where, and your catalog is really it really goes along with what like SharePoint sites. Yeah, if you want to select catalog, give it, you got a name on a you give it a name, and then you start adding things to the catalog, and it's exactly like creating a shopping cart. Oh yeah,
right.
Of course, I love when the descriptions are required. So you create your catalog with what you have, and then you add access packages to it. So you got your resources.
I'm with you.
So the weird thing is, adding resources, you go into add resources, and you got your groups and teams, which again are within Microsoft Teams or groups that you have set
Okay.
up. You have your apps that are in there. So your line of, any of your apps that you have registered could be your on-premises apps through app registration. Could be, it's anything within the, it could be the enterprise applications. It might be Workday or something like that, right? That you have registered. It's all governed within Azure Active Directory, right? So you have to have an application registered in your app registrations within.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a vanilla directory here, so there's literally nothing on this one.
Exactly.
But
I'd have the same. I'd have the same thing. I think I have my app in mind, but anyway, you build an app in app services that can be in there. But even those other applications, like I said, like if you've got like ServiceNow or something like that that's registered as one of your single sign-on apps, you can assign those, as well as, like I said, any SharePoint sites that you want to collaborate on. All go in there and go into that catalog.
So I'm going to say, Dwayne, this could be something related to a job role, like you say. So this is almost like, rather than having a group that you drop users into, this is like creating a catalog of either groups or teams, applications, SharePoint sites. You're kind of collating all of these different resources and things together that could be a job function or a department access thing. I see.
Yeah, you do have to create that group within Azure Active Directory before you add them to the catalog. You can't actually create that group within here, but you're giving them that access. So yeah, you're on the right path though. It's much deeper than just creating a group in Azure Active Directory, or even just assigning a level of roles within the IAM of the particular application. This is creating that collection, and really, exactly what you said. This could be a department level of applications that department needs to do their job, and it can be member users or guest users that are federated into your Azure Active Directory, and then rather than just going through and nitpicking, picking and choosing roles within Azure AD, this then becomes that entire level of governance within here. You create that list of apps, then you create the access package that then sets up all of the access reviews. So you create the new access package. Here's where you can then add the groups and add everything onto there, add the catalog into that, and then set up how requests work, and then the lifecycle really then is really your governance piece.
Okay, so resource roles again. You can add more things into.
That's what I'm saying. There's a weird chicken and egg there with the the look here in this particular place of which comes first. But you need a catalog to create an access package, but you then kind of draw that access package into that catalog too. It's a really weird kind of way it is right now.
Am I right in thinking that because I selected my test catalog, which was empty?
Yeah, so it's bringing that in. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And if I were to add things here, that effectively would.
So in here, you can take your group and team, and you can select a role. Like you can make them an owner role in there, as well. So you can set up different permissions within that access package for different groups. So if you have multiple teams and you have like a management team in there versus a worker bee team, so to speak,
and you
can assign that management role and give them an ownership level within this access package.
That's
you
cool.
Can set up how requests work and how you invite other users and things in there, and then the life cycle is the big thing. That's the governance piece where you can then set up.
And people can request so you can
levels of roles. If people aren't in your directory, or if you just want to stick with people that have been invited directly into your Azure AD, you can determine how that's going to work.
So people that can request access into this particular access package, users in my directory, I could say all members excluding guests. And so you can start to put some of that workflow in place then with require approval, require a justification. Yes, how many stages? And I guess, you can add a complete workflow on that request then. A bit like that privileged identity management piece, I guess, as well, isn't it?
It's a little bit deeper even than privileged identity management, because it's really this is a lot more layers that you can build into this than even PIM allows. And PIM's just usually, you set an approver and then they approve it and it's good to go.
Yeah, so I mean, I could just select the fallback action and second and third approvers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that is pretty good. Yeah, so effectively, I'm liking the way this has come together. So if I filled that in, which hopefully that'll let me click through, So requests for information is collect information and attributes from the requester. Okay, so you can actually put in your own questions to the person. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Exactly. Yep. To gain attributes and determine how all that how that flow is. And you get some requirements. Then you got data. Then you got some data that you can use from an auditing perspective as to who's accessing and why.
But that's actually and you can obviously set the language as well for the questions and answers, which is pretty powerful. Yeah, pretty powerful.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the thing is you dive into this, you find out really how powerful entitlement management is, and I think it's kind of just one of those kind of a well-kept secret until really this exam came out in terms of what it was.
As I just fix my camera a second, Dwayne, I can still hear and see you, but I think my camera's been on overdrive today, so I might have to give it a give it a break every now and again. Kick. But let's just see if it'll come back to life at some stage. I tell you what, let me pause a second. Cool, and I'm back by the magic of the pause button, Dwayne. So like you're saying, it really is powerful the amount that you can go into. So I mean, we're up to
going to the life cycle pieces. The life cycle piece right here is where we can set up our access reviews, just like in PIM. Where we have access reviews, we can set that up right within here. Set those up. Set it up if it's for member users or guest users. We can get really advanced in here as well. Keep going down and do the show advanced review settings. Yeah. So here we go. We got those capabilities in here. Obviously, if it's a guest user, we don't want them to do a self review. We want to probably have specific reviewers or management review. But key things in here is this is managing that life cycle. So if this is a particular project of catalog, an access group that we're creating access package specifically for a project, we can set that and set those dates right within here and set up, if it's a year-long project, set up quarterly reviews if we want to see if anybody's dropped out of the project and still in there, all of those things.
So everybody, I guess with these things like access reviews, if we've left it as self-review, that a message would be sent to every member of this access package saying, do you still require yes, no, self-approve? And or we can select specific people or the user's manager.
Yep. Cool. And then you can automate that. And then you can automate that down there where it says if a reviewer doesn't respond, obviously it's not important to them. We can just automatically remove them and end the story. And that might
cool.
It might be in the fact that somebody's left the company or maybe somebody's left that partner company and we don't want and it does that level of governance there that we don't have these users floating out there that have access to sensitive information.
No, that makes a lot of sense. So, I mean, I guess once you've, obviously it's going to take some time, I presume. And I don't know, is this aimed at a particular subset of people? Because obviously this is in the Azure portal. It's part of Azure Active Directory. It would imply that you would have some administrator function setting these access packages up in the first place. But I guess it's like anything, a whole process around pushing that down or delegating that down to other business unit members or departments to kind of control these access packages could be done as well if needs be.
That's a really good point to mention is one thing this similarly to PIM, this is a P2 license service, so you have to have that P2 Azure AD license for it. You can but again it's similar to PIM where there is a ratio. So if people if it's for the people that are governing and managing it, it's those are the people that need the license, not necessarily the people that are joining. And they're part of that, part of that group. So if you've got E5 or you've got a P2 license, that's you've got what you need. But what you're saying is you can assign management level people to have the access and the ability to create these packages and manage these packages. So, it might be a branch level office. It might be, like I said, a project manager that's in charge of a particular project. Those are really the good use cases of this. If we've got, you brought up before, a department head, a department that needs a specific access to certain resources, those, that can be utilized with the entitlement management. So, like I said, it gives us a way to just kind of encapsulate what people need to have access to, provide some of those information barriers that we want to have, not to get into the topic of information barriers, because that is another service within Microsoft 365 governance, but it does, within the Azure Active Directory environment, create those barriers, kind of encapsulates, like I said, you create that catalog of what that department or what that project needs so that they can do their job. But if somebody's credentials get hacked, that we have it contained within certain applications in certain areas.
I mean, and I guess things like this stem from the usual scenario that we still see day in, day out, is that, as consultants or technical people that we go on site to help other customers, you can guarantee that domain admin group is going to be full of tech users. Yeah, even today, even after saying you shouldn't do it, you can guarantee it. And what do you think the issue is with those kind of scenarios? Do you think these kind of products, Dwayne, just take that extra step for people to learn and get into? I mean, like you said, you mentioned this, and if I'm being honest, I'd come across entitlement before, but I've never gone into these areas to dig through it in this kind of detail. So, is it a case of awareness, do you think, for businesses more than anything, maybe?
I believe so. Like I said, I didn't really know or delve into it myself until I studied for the exam. And
yeah, sure.
I took the beta exam. Full disclosure, I failed the beta exam, and I was hit hard. I was hit hard with entitlement management. So I spent the time learning it, and I made sure when I wrote my book that I put a proper level of focus on it. But it was one of those things, like entitlement management. I've never really come across that in any class I've ever taken or taught. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on it. And then I got hit with a handful of questions about access packages and catalogs and things, and had no idea what I was answering. So, that I think it's exactly that. And I think the SC 300 exam does a really good job of bringing it into understanding, but still, I think it is a level of not necessarily knowing it's there. Like you said, domain admins or identity admins probably don't think of it as much. They think of their users, their groups, their guest users, their hybrid infrastructure. They're thinking of it from that level, but they're not thinking about, okay, how are we managing the life cycle of our users? How are we maybe creating boundaries around all of what they have access to?
I mean, I guess, traditionally, if we come at it from a traditional sense, for years and years, we've been used to a traditional Active Directory where we've got domain, local, global, universal groups sat in some kind of a nested array of configuration. And more often than not, I think, you've seen third-party services come in and play that lifecycle management point, maybe. Certainly the larger enterprise kind of customers that I've seen have got, ServiceNow or some other third-party utility that will act to a certain extent as that lifecycle management, so that, when you've got leavers and joiners, it'll go through and obviously remove those particular users when they leave a company and things like that. But yeah, I'm with you in the sense that this is something awareness to me as an individual, and I'm sure it's going to be very similar to lots of companies around the globe. So I mean, one quick question just for my own kind of checkpoint. When we've got these resource roles and we've got this groups and teams, I'm presuming this can be, synchronized groups from Azure AD Connect going up into Azure AD, and we can select those. Does that mean that the user that has that access package will be placed in as a member of that group or of that team?
Yes. Yes.
Right.
And you're setting then what roles they're going to have within that team as well. Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. So that's when you select them, you can select the role. Right. Okay. So, wow, it's such a powerful mechanism that you can use just through the portal. And I'm guessing, like anything, all of this potentially can be scripted and automated, with potentially, like I say, for that delegation to business units or branch managers and places like that, I'm guessing,
Yeah, I'm sure there's I haven't played with PowerShell deployment for it, but I'm sure there is. Yes.
So I'm just clicking through the last bits and pieces, but we've got this custom extensions that's in a preview at the moment. So we've got various stages. We can select some kind of a custom extension. So it's like an if this then that kind of rule alert thing that they've got going on. So a rule contains an event that and triggers a previously defined custom flow. So we really are in that sense of being able to hook into, I guess this is where we can hook into those third-party applications and services that may, if you've got a user, you know what it's like with the applications that need their own identity database and things like that. I presume at a particular stage, when a request is approved, then they potentially can be added to a third-party application or something like that.
Right.
Cool.
Yeah, as well as I think you can probably you can trigger a notification, I believe, through like a Logic app or something like that as well, I believe.
Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Or Azure Functions and go and wow, yeah. I mean, the point is it's massively scalable in that sense, isn't it, for what you can do with these access packages? So that's really cool, Dwayne. So I mean, we've kind of it's not a lot for me to save here, but I think we've talked through that access package, creating a catalog, access packages. I mean, is there anywhere else we need to delve into now from an understanding point of view?
Well, terms of use is an interesting piece there as well down below PIM.
Terms of use
is you can also tie in, and bring in terms of use that can then also be, when you create those access packages and those you can bring in, what your licensing agreements are and have them agree to those within here as well. So, if you have specific terms of use, you can upload a document into there and have that be part of the access approval process. You can also within here tie these terms of use into conditional access policies as well.
Wow. Yeah, that's great, isn't it? Yeah, I mean that's really putting a whole heap of functionality on there. So like you say, just your own business terms of use you can actually get via the use of, well, I guess when they log on through their modern auth prompt, they will be presented with that kind of document
prompted with the acceptance block that probably most of us just kind of skim through and don't read. But
scroll up and accept. That's the one. Yeah, absolutely. Maybe they should build in an eye tracker to make sure they've read every line.
Yeah, right. Yeah, there should be some computer vision built into there. That
there we go. Make sure you've read and understood, every word. Yeah. But no, I mean, like you say, that's really powerful stuff. And yeah, I guess to a certain extent, less known that, I presume through using things like your book on the SE300 and sitting that exam, this is where I guess the awareness of these features and functionality is going to become more prevalent over time.
Yeah, there's a whole section on identity governance in there where I go through every one of those pieces within there. Yep, you end up back. Yeah, it's up higher.
There it is. Yeah, got it. So cool. So we've been through the entitlement management. We looked at the terms of use. I guess for people that aren't familiar with privileged identity management, I guess that's another way of managing access to resources. Yeah.
Yeah, where the entitlement management can be really just any kind of user, and privileged identity management is more so geared towards those administrative users, or users that need administrative privileges on a just in time basis, that don't have to, maybe they're not doing that role every day. It's not
Yeah,
necessarily something that's necessarily built to, like your Azure admins, the IT people that are working every day, but those that I use an example of say adding new users, like
hmm,
somebody that need, and maybe instead of having your and some people might cringe at me for saying this, but this is a kind of a good use case that I can think of. A you don't want you have a big, every month you hire a bunch of new people, and you got to get them into Azure Active Directory, and you don't have the bandwidth in your IT group to go doing that. So you want to delegate that to your HR, because they're onboarding them, and
sure,
they're getting all their paperwork done. Let them onboard the users, and give them the licenses that they need, the license that they need to have for Microsoft 365. I mean, that's
sure.
not a huge, a huge security issue necessarily. It needs to be done, and you can have them do that if need be. You could give assign to them, and have them be user admins, and
Hmm.
have them then request, when they need it, to be user admin for an hour, once a
Yeah,
month, and they
I'm
can
with you.
request that. It's auditable, so when that HR person is in there, just in case there's a breach somewhere along the lines, you can track that down. But it just, it takes a little bit of burden off of your IT group on something that's not too advanced of a thing to do, to just add a user and assign a license that's already available to them, because a user and admin can't purchase licenses, so they're not going to do anything financially damaging to you,
Hmm.
as an organization. So you give those people, the people in the human resources department, that user admin, they request access to it when they need to add their groups of users, and they're trained and given a process for adding users, and then when their time's up, they that goes back into the available category, and they don't have that need anymore, and that they don't have that role as active, so that if their credentials are hacked, they do not does not create any kind of escalated privilege situation within our organization. So
Yeah, no, I was going to say, Dwayne, in terms of that, it's that least privilege access kind of level that we're kind of looking for, isn't it? So
yeah,
they elevate up, do the bit that they need to do with that privilege access in a time bound box, and then boom, they elevate back down. So yeah, if they
yeah,
are
and they don't have
handling
to
that,
remember. They don't have to remember to put themselves back down. It'll do it automatically. So they're always
I
good
mean, it's
things.
great. It's great stuff. I mean, have we got any other areas we want to look at now, Dwayne, or are we pretty much there?
I think we're pretty much there. I think we've given them enough for a day,
I think
for an
so. No,
hour.
that's fantastic. So, look, Dwayne, it's been super fun. Thanks so much for coming on and obviously schooling me in those areas. I'm sure everybody watching is going to get just as much out of it as I have now. Um, and for those watching, if you are looking to sit that exam SC300, absolutely, you've seen some of the stuff that Dwayne's worked through here with the book. Go and reach out and get yourself a copy and get studying. I think is probably the best way to put it, eh, Dwayne?
Yeah, always be learning.
Dwayne, thanks for being, as usual, an awesome guest and coming on and saying hello and keeping me updated as to what you're up to. Yeah, thank you for now, Dwayne. That's been awesome.
Thank you, John. Pleasure being here. Happy to come back anytime.
See you very soon. Thanks a lot, Dwayne.
Thanks, everybody.